Around. Hey guys, it's me Dewey. I'm here with Randy Kemp. We're at the Champaign Air Museum, Urbana, Ohio, and Randy Kemp here is the
Project manager.
project manager of the B-17 Champaign Lady, and we're going to do a quick tour. Well, with Randy talking, it's not going to be a quick tour, but Randy's going to talk about the B-17. How long have you been working on this yourself?
Uh, about 9 years.
Okay. So
Closer to 10.
closer to 10 years, he's been working on it himself or with volunteers. It used to be in another hangar on the other side of the airport. They built this beautiful hangar here, and we're going to show you guys the progress and what Randy has actually and his volunteers have actually done to bring this airplane back to life. It's quite impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Not
I'm gonna
every
switch.
county airport in Ohio's got one.
No, I don't know of any other airport that does, to be honest with you. I'm going to switch this camera around. You guys, welcome Randy and the Champaign Air Museum.
This is the forward section. We basically got 5 different serial number airplanes from bulkhead 1, the nose, to the end of the radio room's bulkhead 6. This is serial number 722, and it was an SB-17. It was a boat bomber, and so it carried a lifeboat for air-sea rescue underneath the weapons bay. And when they surplused it in the late 50s, it went to a bombing test range in Nevada. And this is basically what it looked like when it showed up here. It had pretty much been picked over. It was at one of the home bases for the air sprayers. They use these airplanes for fire bombers, and this was one of the Hulks that they were picking. So it was missing a nose, which you see here. So we had to jig and build the nose. I've got 28,000 blueprints to a B-17. We got them digitized.
You guys hear that? 28,000 blueprints. All right.
So as we walk down the side here, we can look. This airplane's been completely reskinned. All the stringers, about 75% of the frames. You figure the nose is completely built here. Also the last 8 feet, which is the radio room, that we didn't have, so we had to jig and build a radio room. Do we can get a shot of the top turret. The story behind the top turret, I got a call one night, and we were down in Hangar 9, and I'd been looking for some of the illustrated parts catalog pictures because they're an isometric drawing. In the rusted remains I had, I could Chinese blueprint one. Those blueprints aren't available. Well, I got the picture of the parts catalog in my hand. The phone rings. It's a gentleman from Springfield, Ohio, about 18 miles south of us. And he said he had something to fit the top hole in our airplane. And I said, which hole are you talking about? He says, the top turret. Do you need one? So the next morning I went down, I agreed to go down, and they agreed to meet with me. And we went down, we talked about the possibility of donating it. And they agreed they wanted to donate it. We needed one. They didn't need one. So I filled out some of the 501c3 paperwork with them. And they graciously awarded us a top turret. They were painting the foundation of the house. They pulled the crawl space cover off, looked back in there and thought it was an old TV because of the sloped glass. And the woman who owned the house agreed to donate it and was happy that we're going to have something from her that we could use. I said, we'll do one better. I said, the guys used to put their girlfriend's name outside of where they're at. Waist guns guys, they have Peggy Sue or something on the side. I said, we're going to put Beverly on the turret. It was her house that the turret had laid under for more than 50 years.
So this was under someone's house.
It was underneath the back porch. They were built in Springfield, Ohio, so we figured that's why it came to that point. Through the weapons bay, it's kind of tough to see with the easels we've got in front, but it's a truss construction, and it's married to a monocoque fuselage. The wings are all truss, amazingly strong. The airplane could withstand a tremendous amount of damage and still bring the guys home. And you've got the radio room. This was completely built here, the last 8 feet of this airplane. And I'm going to pull this out. So what you're looking at here is virtually is a brand new B-17. The seats, we've had to make the seats. You got the radio operator seats. I've got 2 stations in the floor here. I've got 2 more of these seats that are made here. The only thing that's original inside of here is the radio equipment.
So you guys built all this stuff.
Yep.
What you guys see here is all built by the volunteers here in Urbana. Wow.
Now under the floor, we'll back up here and we'll get a picture. This is Red Ketchum, and he comes up on Saturdays. He was a ball turret gunner in World War II. He was part of a project after the war called Casey Jones Project. And I've got a camera, a viewer, and I've got a camera operator. He flew a tremendous number of flights and hours. They photomapped Europe all the way from the Russian-Polish border all down through Albanian and the Baltic areas, and came around towards North Africa and the Rock of Gibraltar and came back up through Western Europe. So you've got a 1942 camera bay, and then you've got my camera bay. So,
now, could you imagine?
Now, this was built on the rear fuselage, which is 316 serial number. So this came in here as pretty rough. This was acquired from a Hollywood movie set. They did the 12 o'clock high TV series and also the 1,000 plane raid. They had a fire in it once a week. They were getting ready for us. What you look at here has been completely replaced. All the frames, skins, stringers. It's a tremendous amount of work from this bulkhead 6 all the way to where the tail gun unit bolts on. There's just 12 bolts hold that tail gun unit on, 12 quarter-inch bolts. If the guys knew it held them on, they'd never pulled the triggers on their machine guns. But we built the bulkhead on the rear section of fuselage. Then as we got the framework ready, we moved the bulkhead forward. These 2 rings just bolt together. And that's what mated the airplane.
These rings here?
Yep. So you get 5/16 holes through it. And that's what you got here. That was the mate. And the Germans depicted that as a weak point, and they did focus the attacks on it. One of the tail gunners that comes in every Saturday, Art, he flew his 35 missions flying backwards, people shooting at him. But his airplane was damaged his 11th mission, and the ball turret is suspended off of this intercostal and hangs on a post with a slip joint and a 20 millimeter cannon shell off an FW-190 snipped the post, and his best buddy, the ball turret gunner, left the airplane. His parachute was still inside the fuselage.
Wow.
You know, it's a long ways down from 29,000 feet. So yeah, what you look at here is the frame for this fuselage section. We tore it down, and it's pretty much virtually unusable. So we had to start back. It's one of the newest B-17s you'll run into.
Our VR4 asked, where's this stored at? This is in Urbana, Ohio at Grimes Airport. This is a volunteer group of guys. Randy is the project manager, and he heads up all this stuff. And I'm going to walk you guys through this, but Randy's giving us a tour, and you guys can see the volunteers here. We have volunteers that actually were B-17 crewmen and everything.
Yep.
So here's some cool stuff.
This is Lee and Chenille. They're building an aileron. I've got one done. It's hanging behind us on the wall. I have Dewey scan the walls. You can see all the parts we got hanging. Out ahead of you, you've got what looks like a bird cage. That's number 3 engine nacelle. We'll walk down there. Number 2 is on the other side. Up on top of our parts bin, we've got number 1 and number 4 engine nacelles. Those are done. They're built from the print. There's very few original pieces for those. This is an outboard wing section. You've got a forward and aft spar, which is truss construction. This is actually a Douglas wing off of 722, which was a Douglas production B-17. And the outboard section will mate to the inboard section, which is back here. This is actually a Lockheed wing. This is off of 813. That airplane crashed in North Carolina in 1980, was a firebomb. Then on the wall up above, you can see you got a pair of bomb bay doors. They're complete.
Whoops.
We've got one aileron. That's the left aileron. It's covered in plastic awaiting fabric. A pair of wingtips to the right of those. Then around on the north wall, we've got a pair of wing flaps. It's a lot easier to store stuff on the walls. Doesn't get hanger rash up there. So a lot of that. You can see the size of the blueprints we've got. We've got some fabulous drawings. It's amazing. The Boeing had archived the blueprints to the Smithsonian, and we bought microfiche from the Smithsonian. It's about $1,500, and then sent that microfiche to Get Imaging in Oklahoma, and it was about $5,500 to get it digitized. So got it loaded on about 5 or 6 computers that are around in the shop here, so you can point and click and get a good view of your specific drawing. And then I've got another computer on the other side of the hangar that's hooked to a big HP 110 printer. It prints you look at so is literally as historic as the airplane is. You got the dates, who drew it, who stressed it, who teched it. Pretty neat.
Man.
You look at the clarity of this. We've got some cloud from the transfer, basically to microfiche is where you picked up that cloud. So once it's digitized, it's forever locked up.
Is that a Jeep?
Yeah, we're making a lot of racket back here.
Yeah, sorry you guys, but the volunteers are actually working.
Yeah.
And you can see these guys here building on a spar.
On any given day, I've got between 25 and 30 volunteers.
So
about every walk of life you can imagine.
Where do you guys get the money to do this, Randy?
Well, our B-25 flies, and so we get some appearance fee money for that, hats and shirts. We're pretty much standalone as far as independence. We do an annual gala, which gives us pretty much our museum's operating budget. And then the airplane, everything I have to do to fund it. I buy all my own sheet metal and all my own fasteners and whatnot. You're looking at some pretty complex frames.
There you go. So what is this right here? This is the engine nacelle.
This is number 3 engine nacelle. You can see you've got a cradle on this frame. This is your oil tank neck. Your oil tank will lay on these 3 cradle frames. Everything you're looking at here, we've had to make from the firewall up. There's just a small portion of these nacelles that are original, and that's your hot section. This is the exhaust tunnel. This is original. Other than that, everything else you look at, we've made new. It's a lot of fun forming these frames. This is a J-channel Z frame. These are stainless. We make the aluminum frames out of O material, soft, and then I heat treat it. But the stainless, I don't have the capability, so I'm using a hard material. It's 301 quarter hard, and so it makes it a lot of fun when you're forming something that's as complicated as these radial frames. So these are back-to-back, your 2 inboard engines. This is number 2. And you can see the hot section on it. That's what's original. You come around to it.
Yeah.
So what you're looking at are virtually factory fresh or brand new nacelles. All the parts are detailed, worked to a finished point where they're ready to drill and start to assemble. Then we pull everything down, do a final treatment with Allodyne for the aluminum parts, and then paint it. This is a very durable paint. I lost one brand of paint I had, and I spent about 1.5 years with Pittsburgh plate glass, PPG. And it's my color green I started with, but it's a derivative of the Sikorsky Blackhawk paint. I've got to have a paint that'll actually withstand temperatures as well as chemicals. So if you get oil on it, you're not going to deteriorate your paint. But the big factor is this airplane had fabric flight controls, and those fabric flight controls the modern process we're running fabric with is polyfiber, and so it's a vinyl-based system. And MEK, which is no friend to paint, is really the vehicle that you use to wash all your parts. You use it to thin your paints. So all of these primers, all these parts that are painted this green, it's a bulletproof paint. So it'll withstand MEK after it finishes up. So it'll pretty much take all the fluids of the day, the engine oil and the hydraulics. Here you can see number 1 and number 4 nacelles. And the same with those, you've got some of the stainless sections for the hot section, the exhaust shrouds. It's original.
Is that a turbo?
We've had to build. I've got 6 turbochargers that have been overhauled. Got another volunteer that lives down on the Ohio River, and he's a retired GE engineer. And from that, he's able to work his magic. And he's enjoyed every minute of it. He's got 6 turbos that are overhauled and ready to go. So
guys, if you just now catching, I'm here with Randy Kemp. We're at the Champaign Air Museum in Urbana, Ohio. And before we stop, we're going to go hear all that banging noise because he's been banging since we started this interview. And he wasn't before we started. But they are actually building a B-17. It's called the Champaign Lady. You guys can actually find them. Okay, we can find this stuff on the web. Actually, here I want to turn this camera around and show the nose of this. So Randy is the project manager. He runs this, but they've been working on this airplane for about 10 years. And pretty much everything is built by volunteers. They find old crash B-17s, and if they can't find this stuff, they build it. And I'm showing you guys exactly what I'm talking about. They have jigs, they're heat treating stuff. Randy's teaching everybody. I mean, you can come and volunteer to do this. It's not anything, you don't have to be an AMP or anything like that. There's Randy, he's waiting for me to quit jiving around here. There's the cockpit area. I've seen this progress for many, many years. Here, we haven't even showed the rudder. We have to show some markings and stuff. All right. So,
it's part of the patchwork quilt of airplane serial numbers that puts this thing together. This is 525's aft or vertical fin on top of 316's rear fuselage. So we had to jig and build the entire dorsal fin you're looking at from 316 and to 525's tail.
Wow.
A lot of the banging you heard in the background, we use a nylon and both leather mallets and also plastic mallets. What we're doing is we're making nose ribs. This starts out as straight sheet, and from that you're able to, here's some of the form sections. This again is O material. It's the material that's called for on the blueprint, and then we're able to go ahead and form it. We're using this nylon. We use 3 pieces of nylon. You put one on the inside, so when you put this stuff together, you'll have a piece here, and then you'll have a piece under each side, and there's a slight radius there. And the reason being is, if you look at the end of this, we've got to roll this stock over once we've done it. So you'll have another piece on this side. you're able to form this stuff. We do it in the process in the press. We're pressing into rubber, and then we finish out with a couple of steps with the English wheel, and try to get the finish, the surface, where it's adequate what we're actually trying to achieve. This stuff doesn't exist anymore.
So how many do you have to make of these right now?
About for the first 4 wing rib stations, 1, 2, 3, 4, are build up ribs like this.
Really?
Then you get outboard of that, and it's a sheet rib. So these are a truss type rib. You can see your tubes. This is a round tube. They're squashed, so to speak, and then there's a phenolic filler in there, and you rivet these through. So the heads are on this side, the butts are on the back side of the tube. How that stuff's all put together.
So you guys can see what he just showed us. See these straight pieces? When they're done, they're going to be these round pieces.
And these are the trailing edge
Okay.
over the flap. And this is an original. These are the new ones that we're making. This has been heat treated. Now it's been allodyne, so it's ready for paint. We'll drill it, clean it, deburr it, then it'll go to paint. And so when we assemble it, what you see is painted parts with brand new fasteners in them. We're using all the modern fasteners. Pretty much everything that was called out on the blueprints has been superseded. You're looking at just 470s, AN 470s, the button heads, and 426s are the flush heads. All the other call outs are based on the AC 4313. They've been just superseded, and now you're down to two rivets. Here towards the back, we're making new cowling. You can see a seat. This seat's made here. We've got a high school VOTEC on the field. They've made a pair of these seats.
So high school kids have made seats for you.
Yep.
You guys hear that?
The whole thing that started this whole museum was the patriarch wanted to get the kids in the community in the area here with a technical skill, because shop class is gone.
Right.
So what you're looking at, this thing is very light. It's just sheet metal. What makes it strong, this is part of the edging, and it's sheet. And we form this over a steel tube, make this key-shaped section, and then pull the steel tube. I put a piece of 50-52-0 tubing in here, and so when we form it, it keeps it from shrinking, cracking, getting ugly. It's not distorted. But this is basically, this is the trim to this seat. So when this is riveted on, it really makes it strong. You can jump up and down in one of these seats, and it only weighs about 3 pounds. It's it's amazing.
So high school kids have made this.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. We've got about 7 of them that have been made. Here's another.
Look at this.
This is skin engine cowl. We've got to make 36 of these skins. That was the banging you heard.
Okay.
That's Kent over here. He's forming a skin, and it's all old school. I call it beating parts out over rocks.
Can't.
Then we have then this is a wooden mock-up that's made off of an original skin. So we'll lay this over here, and we'll use these rawhide slappers, and we'll slap it into shape. With this being soft yet, it'll still move quite a bit. And then we'll go over and we'll take these divots out with the English wheel and finish these up. I'm going to go around the other end.
Okay.
I'm going to grab one of the skins I've got back here.
You guys can see we're in Urbana, Ohio. Randy Kemp's giving me a brief on the B-17 project that they're restoring. They've been working on this for about 9 to 10 years. You can see here there's the aft part of the aircraft, there's the front part there, but this is all volunteers putting this all together, working on all this metal, putting everything together. It's quite amazing. You guys could come here and actually have a little bit of blood, sweat, and tears in here, get to sign the aircraft, get to meet some really awesome vets. We have some really cool B-17 crew members that actually come here and work. Is it George?
George Snook. He's a B-24 top turret. He's a flight engineer. Red was a ball turret, and then Art Kemp was tail gun.
Yeah.
So we're not related. We got the same last name, but different moms. So
that's good.
But, yeah, here's one of the original skins. It's got enough corrosion to it. If you tried to remove the corrosion, you'd blow it out of limits. So we make the new skin. This has been heat treated, and this is stretch form. It's metal shaping, not necessarily metal forming. Then I've got.
Here, I'm gonna turn the camera around so you guys can see this.
This is a frame. This is kind of the what determines whether or not we've got this contour correct, and that's based on where it comes off of the cowl. You can see where this is attached to this cowl in this hat section. So once we achieve that, we get the amount of material we need to make the rollover for the lip, so that we're long enough in this direction, we're wide enough. Each one of these 36 panels, or in you're looking at 4 engines and 9 skins on each engine cowl. So each one of them is just a little different as far as width. The lengths are all pretty much the same. So we've got one set done, and now we're drilling and riveting it together. So this is something that hadn't been made in 70 years. This is one of the cowls. I've got seal. This is a seal that is an air seal because it's an air-cooled engine, so you have to stop and direct some of your flow. This is an area where one of them rings around the engine itself. There's another chunk of rubber there. But yeah, these were, a lot of them were spot welded.
Wow.
So we're having to rivet.
How long did it take Boeing to build a B-17?
Well, they built 17 a day, so I catch a lot of heat over that. Why it's taken us 12 years. So we're getting close. But
17 a day.
Yeah. Long Beach built about 13 a day, and Burbank, Lockheed built about 13 a day. What Dewey's showing you, there's a red tail to a B-17. I catch a lot of flack over this. I bought a B-17 for $10. It was in Alaska. I had to go fish it out of bear country. It cost me $28,000 to ship it, but I paid $10 for the airplane. It was on state land. I had to buy a $10 land use permit, so technically I didn't pay anything for the airplane. I just couldn't have any gold or oil mineral rights, but I asked them about aluminum, and they said, you can have all that you want. What's in front of that, bright, shiny silver, those are 2 horizontal stabilizers that have been built from the attach fittings of the red tail out of Alaska, which is our 5th serial number airplane, 4485505. That crashed on a radar flight in 1951, about 180 miles north of Anchorage, north of the town of Talkeetna, between 2 rivers that come off of Denali. So it was pretty inaccessible. We helicoptered in and helicoptered the airplane and us back out. And these guys had 2 weeks up there and want to go back. They, you know.
Wow. I've seen the pictures with you guys with the helicopter lifting the B-17 out of the forest.
Yeah. You can Google B-17 Alaska recovery, and it's a video that was done by KTTV out of Anchorage. They came up and spent a day with us, and they didn't want to go home, so they had a blast. So now I've got an elevator that's over here.
All right.
This is a husband and wife that are making the elevator. This is the right hand. The left hand I've got on. This is a jig. This is actually a pickup fixture. So we're starting the second spar for the left hand. But everything you see here that's yellow came off of the Alaska wreck. So
Okay.
all of these ribs, I've left the dirt on them. There's no corrosion. There's no damage. But on this side, you can see this patina, so to speak, from the dust. It's part of the story this thing tells. It's in amazing shape. I've got some sections of original fabric. Got one in my pocket. People can't believe you actually walk around with a chunk of airplane fabric in your pocket. But it's this is 1945 original factory fabric, and this cotton is in incredible shape.
Wow.
It was amazing. This airplane sat on a bed of thatch. The ferns grow armpit deep up there in this area. You're looking at almost 90 days straight of growing season of constant daylight. And so you've got that kind of daylight during the summer months, and then during the winter you've got that kind of darkness too. It's like one big night.
Wow.
And it's in a deep freeze, so it was well protected.
Who carries fabric around in their pocket? I'm not quite sure.
1945.
Randy does. Only person probably in this whole country, in the world.
But everything you're looking at here, you've got all the left hand's nose ribs.
So you guys built every...
Robert and Carol Buckwalter. This is Carol's
this is Robert
job.
and Carol's stuff, huh?
Yeah. Yep. So
I know Robert and Carol.
Carol is pretty fussy. If she don't like it, she don't ever show it to me. It just gets mashed and she starts.
Look at that, guys. Okay.
But yep. So the rest of this, what's not yellow, we've had to build, and that's all built off of the drawing.
Wow.
It's neat. It's all shot with a laser. I set a laser up at the inboard end at the root, and I've got a vertical and a horizontal beam. I run the vertical right up so that I'm lighting up the tips, the trailing edge, all the way down that torque tube you saw. It would literally cross the bolt pattern. And then this is one of the aileron hinges. There's a 1/4-inch hole through 2 layers of aluminum. And then another 8 feet down, you've got another one of these boxes. This is another hinge point. And then you've got one right on the end.
Okay.
So that's your 3-point hinge point.
Okay.
That's this bearing. When I shot the laser through, this was actually only a number 40 hole in the skin, and I wanted to make sure it was where it needed to be. If I had to move it, I've got 200,000 so I can move it. So I'm putting my hand up and I'm looking at the red dot on my hand, and one of my medical volunteers, he's going, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm checking my alignment on my hinges." He says, "What's that red dot?" I said, "That's coming from the laser down there, and I'm shining through the other hinge points so that I'm lined up."
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So it's completely straight. You can shoot a laser through, what is that?
This is a 1/4
1/4-inch hole. I'd say it's pretty good.
Yep.
So I've been here and I've seen a lot of husband and wives, kids, high school kids,
grandkids,
you know, and everything's built in this airplane. And Randy, he might tell you, when do you think you'll have this done?
a couple weeks.
A couple weeks. He's just not sure which couple.
No, they say what day. I say Thursday.
Thursday. So this is the aft part of the B-17, and the rear. Actually, I could go show you that.
Yeah, the tail gun. The tail gun picks up these bolt locations. You've got 2 here, side by side, and then some singles. As they clock around, then you'll have a pair here. And a kid, Art Kemp, he's a tail gunner. And if you knew what held you on, you'd never pulled the triggers. They talk about where it was safe and where it wasn't on the B-17. This is the survivability percentage. So you're looking at bombardier tail gunner because of the nose head-on attacks. Navigator, he's also in the nose. Waist gunners, you're coming up through the formation. The top turret, you're attacking from above the formation. Also the radio operator, and then the flight deck. The safest place on the airplane is actually the ball turret. It's stuck up underneath. The guy's already in a fetal position, and most ball turret guys weren't much bigger than about 5'5". I've got an exception to that. I've got one that lived over in Columbus. He was 6'1", and they flew 33 missions in the boat.
Man. So these are spars.
These are the inboard wing spars. You've got the rear spar here, the forward spar. You can see the engine nacelle locations. We built those engine nacelles based on a ring that we developed off of the to build the actual nacelle. So we've mated it up to this so that nacelle will actually come in without a whole bunch of foul language. I always kid everybody, you shoot pool, you use a lot of English. You build an airplane, you use a lot of French. What you're looking at, you can see the painted parts with the rivets. This drives a lot of them nuts. All the other B-17s that have been through here, we did the co-op meeting once a year. All the B-17 ground maintenance and some of the flight crew get together someplace in the country. This year it was Dayton, and it was a preliminary for the Memphis Bell rollout next May at Dayton. I've got 4 B-17s coming in here now on the 17th. They'll be in here to party the 14th, 15th, 16th, and then they fly to the museum and spend the 17th, 18th down there on Wright Field at the Air Force Museum, and the rollout of the Memphis Bell and the ceremonies for that. But when they look at this, they're realizing that they've been flying for 70 years, and they don't really have this to look at. The painted parts, the riveted structure. Inside a lot of the wings, you had a lot of bare metal. Some parts were prime, but pretty much not 100% like we will be.
Right.
So, yep.
So everything you guys built right there, you riveted all that.
Yes.
Wow.
These are completely tore down. You can see this. This was from a previous employer where I worked. This is an FR primer. It's a good primer. It's as good as bulletproof as this. But I ran a lot of B-17 through the last place I worked, and got a lot of NDT done, a lot of certified conditions. But this plate was removed. You're looking at a tremendous number of rivets. It's 25-foot long tube. It's riveted inside the tube. This has been quite a feat. We did a lot of head scratching, a lot of 2:30 in the morning, waking up in a cold sweat going, no, I can't do it. And suddenly a flyer, a shop pamphlet just from the manufacturer came in, and I flipped through it, and on page 28, it was, what you're looking at is the terminal end of the B-17, and you had both spars and 3 rosies and an inspector, and the rosies had a rigid line with a shutoff, an air valve. I'm looking at that and I'm going, now what the heck's going on? The guy was on his butt looking in the bottom, and he had a bore scope. So what we do, what we've done, we use a few modern new materials and whatnot.
If you guys don't know what a bore scope is, it's pretty much a magnifying glass. Oh, it looks like they might have something here.
Yeah, we do. This is a lipstick camera.
Okay.
And it's cabled all the way through. So you've got to go up to 20 feet really from one end to the other. This is sitting in protection in the tube that is our jig. Then this is our air system that we're actually bucking the rivet with. And how this thing works, this slides in. This stainless or this aluminum is to protect the bottom, and you'll charge the valve that's at the other end and put about 35 psi in this. This is a piece of hydraulic seal, and we've got a plug with a bleed hole. So you'll pressurize this and you'll inflate it inside the tube.
Okay.
And it will return just like you're holding a bucking bar.
So it's the bucking bar.
So you can buck your rivets. And when we've done that,
you guys didn't hear that, but Randy was saying he looked at a book and seen a rosy riveter with like a bore scope back in the day, and that gave them the ideas to do the technology that is required to put these spars together.
So from the lipstick camera, we create a file, and then
wow,
what you're looking at, you've got what the wing station is and the part numbers, and then a picture that's inside that. So I can sit here and look down there. You get some dirt on this one.
Look at that.
And so, yeah, here you can see the plug that's in there, some shiny spots. Uh-oh, I lost my, what did I lose? Let me close this. Got to start over. What did it do? It did something to me. So as you go through that, every 12 inches or so, we're able to catalog what we've got in there. and to look at what we've got versus what the original fasteners were was a little scary. So it's another thing that you get a pretty good handle on, is the repetitive condition that you're doing things in. And these things are a truss tube. You can see that below in the truss, below the spar tube itself, that has to be assembled because it's closed out before you put on the main cord. So there's a lot of hair pulling and screaming. That's where French language comes in. Not just the materials and the technique, but also the sequence that they built the airplane in. It's not too hard to paint yourself not into a corner, paint yourself out in the middle of the floor, and so you get a pretty good exercise in thinking ahead.
Let's go look at the rear gun real quick, and then we can wrap it up. Randy Kemp is giving the tour of the Champaign Lady here at Urbana Grimes Airport. The Urbana is just maybe 30 miles to the northwest of Dayton.
Yeah, about 25.
So you guys can come here. It's a free museum, and you can see what.
We charge you to get out, not to come in.
You can come in free. But
this is a ring that just bolts onto the other tail section. You can see where you got the 2 bolts here. You've got 2 down here, and then singles. That's all that held this on.
So Randy, he mentioned it 2 or 3 times. 12 bolts hold this whole rear turret on.
And you've got a pair of 50s in here.
50 cal machine guns.
Yep. You've got a bicycle seat. It's adjustable both forward and aft and up and down. And then a set of pads, knee pads. You're actually kneeling, sitting on a bicycle seat with your hands on the guns. Now they changed the gun. This is called the Cheyenne tail. That was a mod done in Cheyenne, Wyoming. That tail changed the throws on the guns. It took it almost to 180 degrees left to right versus about 120 degrees. You had about 60 degrees of swing either side. This took you to almost 90. So it gave you much more realm to protect yourself. The only thing original in this is that sight.
Okay.
That sight is an original sight. Everything else we've pretty much had to make. The carriers for the gun, the posts, the pumpkin, about 90% of the structure. You're looking at wooden ammo boxes. When they started building B-29s, they started going around to both Lockheed, Douglas, and even other Boeing affiliates, and started taking items that didn't need to be made out of aluminum and made them out of, in this case, number 2 yellow pine. The flooring, the ammo boxes, a lot of the bracketry we've got in the nose and along the side of the fuselage was all plywood, and I got it on a print. It's Boeing. It's not nothing we're making up. But they did that. They needed the aluminum for the other airplanes they were building.
Right.
You figure how many B-29s they had to build between 42 and 45. They needed, to be able to lean the industry out to support all the production.
Well, let's look at the engine real quick. Actually, let me get one more shot of this, and then there you guys go. This is the rear turret.
Tail end Charlie.
And then here we go. This is
a Wright 1830, or excuse me, 1820. It's one of 5 that we have that have been overhauled and waiting on us to get the rest of the airplane done.
Wow.
I've got 4 props that have been overhauled and freshened. Every 5 years, the propellers, regardless of time in service, it's a calendar issue. It's a drop dead date. So every 5 years, your props have to go in for corrosion and.
Really?
Yeah.
No matter what.
No matter what. But you're looking at about 10 grand to do all 4 props on the B-17. I'm about 6 grand on the B-25.
Wow.
So yeah, it's some of the checks you write get a little nervous.
Well, I guess we're about done. We'll let's walk back over here one quick second. We'll wrap this up. Okay, guys, so we are done. Randy said he was busy and he only had a few minutes, but he gave us a great tour of Champaign Lady, the B-17 that they're actually building through volunteers. Randy is the only employee in his whole museum, and he's been here really since the beginning of it. He teaches everyone how to work together and work on these parts. And
yeah, I'm the only person that had any background. Everybody else, the only aluminum they ever bent was a beer can.
Because they stepped on it.
Yeah. But I'm the IA, I'm the inspector, I'm it. And I deal the liaison with my friends at the FAA. They come in several times a year, and it's more of a hoot for them because they're looking at literally history back in production.
Right.
And they enjoy everything they look at. You get, everybody comes in the doors an inspector. So we're not getting away with anything.
How many B-17s are flying right now?
Really 11. There's a couple others that are close that could be.
Okay.
Right now, worldwide, we've got 11.
Okay. You guys can see the B-25 back there. That's Champaign girl.
That's my part-time job.
That's his part-time girl or job there. Yeah. So Randy, I appreciate it. I see him around at a lot of shows while I'm doing biplane rides. I think he follows me around, or they do, but they say I follow them around. But we're everywhere, all over Ohio. Yeah. And this is strictly a foundation. You guys can also volunteer here, but you can help donate. If you guys ever want to come by and visit, it's free to get in.
May. It's going to be busy. I'm going to have 4 to 6 B-17s hopping rides out here for 2 to 3 days.
So that's May 17th it starts here?
Well, the 14th, 15th, 16th, and then the 17th, we're all at Dayton.
Okay. So. May 14th, 15th, 16th, here at Urbana Grimes. They're having a gathering of B-17s. Then it leaves and goes over to right field, okay? And they're there for, what, 3 days there?
Yeah.
Okay, over at Wright Pat at the National Museum of the United States Air Force. But you can come and take rides here May 14th, 15th, 16th, 2018. I tell you, if I'm off work, I'm going to be up here running around with a camera, and I'll probably take a ride. Actually, I rode in Modest Maiden, so I had a great time. I'd rather get some stick time with it, but they didn't let me try it out this time, so maybe next time. But thanks, Randy. He's the brain of this project here.
Well, that's a deficit if you refer to me as that.
You guys watch this whole video from the start to the beginning. He gives you some statistics, the blueprints. He showed us like a whole thing of blueprints, but then I see a whole nother thing of blueprints. So obviously we only seen a couple of them. And that's it. We're going to stop there.
Okay. Thanks, dude.
I'm going to give him a handshake here. Yeah. See you guys. See you, Randy.